Okay, here we are. Welcome to the Real University, where your HBCU aunties exist. My name is Mia Ferguson, and I welcome you back for what I believe is our 6th episode, here with my partner in crime. You're the partner.
Kyan Anderson, your favorite HBCU auntie.
Not favorite. We got favorites.
You know I play favorites.
Oh, mercy. This is where it all starts. That's where it starts with favorites. Okay. So today's topic, which I'm sure resonates in your soul, dining options. Do we consider our campuses to have food insecurities? Let's talk about it. I'm going to start.
So
from my perspective, my mama knew I was living on campus, so I ain't had them problems.
Go ahead. See, let's dig in to that a little deeper, because I'm not sure if our audience knows how we actually are connected, but our parents were best friends and our parents met in college. But when it came to upbringing and certain domestic tasks, they were polar opposites. So while Mia grew up with nice home cooked meals made from scratch because her mother had that little southern feel to her, I grew up on fast food and junk food most of the time. So there were no restrictions as far as anything dietary in my home outside of the fact that I was just a picky eater. There were certain things that I was not going to eat. But my mother was not going to cook, so she was all about convenience foods.
So Linda didn't cook at all times. I don't believe this. I'm not going to let you talk about her like that. I'm not. I'm on your side. I'm representing the genius right now.
I am the cook that I am is because she didn't. She didn't. Okay. And if she did, and then also I grew up, so in those pivotal years, those young years, my grandmother cooked on the weekends, so I would go spend the weekends with them. So that's how I kind of got, home cooked meals and things like that. But the kids used to make fun of me because my mother didn't buy brown bags to put my lunch in if I didn't feel like carrying a lunchbox. We had a plethora of fast food carry-out paper bags that I carried my lunch in. So everybody knew what I probably had to eat.
You thought you had McDonald's, but you ain't had McDonald's.
Exactly. So let's bring this full circle. So when it was time for me to go away to school, and there was this meal plan, and there were 3 solid meals a day that didn't consist of mostly prepared foods, I had more food options. And I'll say this. So when I started my freshman year, I was probably all of 112 pounds soaking wet. While we'll probably get into it a little bit later on in this episode, but that freshman 15, so I actually gained about 8 pounds. Discovered that breakfast was the best meal of the day because the cafeteria was not backed up. I would get up. I was the one who would take 8 o'clock classes. So I would get my breakfast before I went to class. And then because of the type of meal plan that I chose, I had a choice that day if I wanted to either eat lunch, depending on what they were serving, or dinner. So, but that breakfast.
Wait, you couldn't eat lunch and dinner? You could only choose lunch or dinner?
It depends on the tier of your meal plan. And these meal plans, yes, that's because you are a commuter student. We're gonna get into that as well. So yes, there's tier options for your meal plan. So I think when I was at Morgan, I had a 19 meal plan, like 19 meals per week. So that included 2 meals a day and then 2 meals per day on the weekend. So, sometimes, and as you talked about food insecurity, sometimes you have choices to make. Now, while my choices weren't that dire because I had 2 meals a day, it's fine. But some people are making the choice to either have, and nowadays with the kids, they can have a cash option, which they have like a cash account, and they could go to some of the little other places on campuses.
Like we had Chick-fil-A, we had the canteen. Got you. We had the best. Morgan had the best chicken wings ever. No. The full in the canteen, the full drums, girl, the full wings, girl. Them things was something serious. I had to stop eating every day because I was eating chicken every day.
So again, as we talk about this whole conversation about nutrition, because sometimes as a college student, you can also get stuck in certain things. And now I will say, I mean, things have progressed quite a bit, especially with, you know, the Obama administration and Michelle Obama's
healthy eating initiative.
Her healthy eating initiative, where there's more fruits and vegetables. But again, a lot of us are coming from underserved urban areas. You know, quite honestly, let's speak on it. Some of our classmates were from, you know, from some dire situations. So they were on, you know, free lunch programs and things like that. So when you get here, you get a meal plan. All this food is available for you. Now, I will say this again, we're all picky. Breakfast options, cereal. I mean, we was up there hoarding cereal. It was so easy to take.
You're the reason why I eat Fruity Pebbles. You're the reason I eat Fruity Pebbles, and I like what was it? The cocoa the cocoa pebbles.
Count chocolate.
Count chocolate.
Oh, cocoa pebbles and Fruity.
Yeah, you're the reason why I eat that, because I couldn't believe. I was like, what? That was so good.
Because again, that's the difference in our upbringing, because your mother cooked. So I've been climbing up on counters getting my own cereal since I was 3 years old.
So to your point, you know, it wasn't until I got into college that I found out that macaroni and cheese could come out of a box with like powdered cheese. I didn't understand it. I was like, what is this? And I was like, wait a minute, how do you make macaroni and cheese without eggs and cheese and noodles and like the 3 different kinds of cheeses without putting it in the oven? I was like, what is this artificial intelligence? Then I realized it was a couple of things that to this day, you're the reason why I eat Taco Bell.
But not only that, let's go back to macaroni and cheese. Before I came east to Baltimore, I did not eat real mac and cheese. It was nasty to me. Until I came to Baltimore and Maryland, that was the first time I had really embraced baked macaroni and cheese from scratch. And then from that point on, all of the traumas that I had, now I make the best slapping macaroni and cheese in the land because that experience. So we can all tie that back to getting away from the habits and things that you've had in your environment all of your life, going someplace and experiencing new things. I mean, that was stimulating to my palate.
Right. I get it. It's definitely exposure on so many different levels.
You know, that experience introduced you to processed foods, which isn't the greatest thing in the world, but that was my life versus your life. And then, so again, when you converge on a campus, you get that meal plan. That meal plan has all intentions of, you know, addressing all of the pillars of nutrition. But again, it's our choices. Again, when I started my freshman year at Lincoln, I had never known that there was something called chipped beef that existed, you know.
Cream chipped beef on toast.
And then another thing that I want to actually bring up, because it is Ramadan, that was the first time I was introduced to the fact that there was a special diet and special time for those students of other religious beliefs. So our school, being HBCUs, and this is where we talk about inclusivity a lot, had bags, and the dining hall was open earlier for them to come get their meals so that they could eat before it was time to fast. So again, this is one of those things that I feel is important to on the subject of inclusion, because I'm not sure if there's other places that would do that, but they had their special diet, and they would get little brown bags, and that was their special diet to get them through the season of Ramadan. So those dining options are there, and they're designed to hit, like I said, hit all pillars of nutrition. But it's the decisions that we make. I hate to say, and then actually my freshman year at Lincoln, talking with some of my other friends, they really were the ones that were instrumental in me no longer drinking soda or pop. You know, it was like, okay, this high fructose corn syrup and all of that is not good for you. So I started looking at other options outside of that. That's how I learned how to make restaurant table lemonade.
Tea.
So but again, those options are available for you. And again, depending on what you can afford, and depending on what you consume, you want to make good financial decisions when it comes to your meal plan, because it may seem, when you're paying for all of your food for one semester up front, yes, it seems very expensive, and it seems, you know, a little inflated. But at the same time, you have the convenience of not having to cook. You have the convenience of all you can eat, because literally once you swipe and you're in there, you can eat 16 to 17 meals.
So let's talk about that part, because I find myself in my older years giving students that I know the 411 on how to activate it once you get in the dining hall. And again, I feel like I learned this from you. I have one of my babies, and I told her, I said, listen, she's like, you know me, I need to go to the grocery store, I need to buy cereal. I said, cereal? You don't buy cereal. You take your big container over to that refect and you fill that thing up. So you got cereal for the week. You take your big container, take the container that's big enough for your refrigerator, fill up your milk, get you your juice, and guess what she does now? She goes over there, she fills up her juice, she gets her milk, she gets her cereal. I said, you pay for that food.
Maximize your meal plan.
Right, back to how you monopolize your meal plan. Be smart about it. You might not want to wake up every single day to get breakfast, but you want breakfast, or you're hungry at night and you need something quick to eat. Fill it up so you can eat you a bowl of cereal, because I feel like that's the thing that comes with college students too. We will eat cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it's just that good. I'm just saying. But to this day, I still will do it to this day. But how to be wise with your meal plan is really important as well.
Being wise with your meal plan, but also, like I said, consider the time that you spend in the cafe or the refectory or cafeteria, whatever you guys call it, is also that bonding time. But again, like I said, you're in there a lot of the times. If you come in for lunch, and of course, there's a time limit on anything, but if you're coming in there and you're socializing, you're studying, you're doing a lot of things, you're in there for a 2-hour span. Just because that first meal is over does not mean that, you can't go back up and get 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Because remember, we're also feeding athletes.
Right. The baby's hungry.
We're feeding athletes. So, think of ways to really to maximize your meal plan. But also, I want to go back to the point that, yes, I was a picky eater. So they didn't have Fruity Pebbles sometimes. So actually, I would get Fruity Pebbles in my care package. And please, anybody that's out there, do not feel that getting care packages is an antiquated act of love from your parents. I loved receiving them, and I actually love packing my baby stuff up that he likes and he enjoys. And also helping save a couple of dollars, because again, while my mother was the junk food queen, I didn't have to worry about. And okay, so regionally, when I went east, they had tasty cakes and stuff, and they weren't tasty. So I would say something, my mother would send me the Hostess ding dongs, the Twinkies, the orange cupcakes, and everything that I liked. But again, that was another way for me to help provide food for me, so that I wouldn't have to worry about paying that for myself. But this is a practice that, even my great uncles, when they were at HBCUs, their mom would send them whole Coke. I used to hear stories about them getting whole
meals. Whole meals. My father would tell me my grandmother would send whole meals. And people his whole floor was waiting for people, because he was an OC, waiting for his packages to come with my grandmother's food. Whole meals. I said, Dad, how do you do that?
I mean, and recently, last year, I sent Chaz a care package for Valentine's Day, and hoping that he would want to romance somebody, I sent him a 2-part spaghetti dinner. Like literally everything. And he was like, we actually invited some more people. I was like, no, you were supposed to keep some to the side for yourself. But he said, we invited everybody and they like your spaghetti. So it's one of those things where don't refuse that. Like literally look at that as another way to, to feed yourself. And when I say get involved with your administration and those people that work in the university, there are some people that are still willing to feed you as well. That's that whole community. But also, like I said, getting back to the original topic of nutrition, a lot of the things are the choices that we make. Now, some of us go away and actually we become better eaters than we were in the past, because you have access to foods that you probably didn't in your normal environment. But we're also talking about people who have meal plans. So for you, for instance, talk a little bit more about your commuter experience and when you had to spend extended periods of time on campus, how you filled your belly.
So because of the schedule that I had, most of my classes were on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Because I worked. I was a full-time employee. And so I was on campus from like 11. My last class ended at like 8. So I would literally we had the Muffin Man right there outside of, and so when I would enter campus, I would get a muffin. I think he also had like fruit, like, so I would get like a muffin, an apple, and then I believe at the time he had some form of, he had this, was a Snapple. I think it was Snapples and Mystics back then. And that would get me through like the first couple of hours of school. And then when I had that huge break, I would go down to the canteen and I would get my chicken and fries. I had Salisbury steak for the first time on Morgan's campus. That was pretty good because, we didn't have access to the cafeteria. I couldn't go into the cafeteria because I wasn't a student. I mean, I wasn't a on-campus resident. So that was where...
Actually, you could now, and even then, it just probably wasn't on your radar. If you wanted to...
We had that food truck. Remember that food truck that used to come up right there on the side? I would go to the food truck. So I was pretty stable and I had for college, I was making money. So I didn't mind buying it, but I was buying food for 2 days a week. I was buying food and then I was in food service. So I would manage a whole cafeteria food service for the hospital. So I had prepared chef meals every day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I did pretty good on the food front. When it came
just for everyone to know, even if you are a commuter student, you can purchase a smaller meal plan for yourself. So you could do like the one meal a day or something if you like. That's an option. Or again, nowadays you could fill up that card that you would go to the canteen with, and then just swipe that.
Put money and have some other options.
Now, whether or not it's a difference in pricing in what you typically would have ordered on a day. It may, you have to do the math sometimes and really see and calculate, what is advantageous for you in your monetary situation. It's like, hey, if I go in there, I'm putting $500 for the semester on the card, but literally I'm getting the equivalent of a $2 muffin every day, then you're wasting money. But if you're going in there to really maximize your meals, then it makes sense. So you kind of have to, in hindsight, in foresight, do some planning around how you eat and what your eating habits are.
Now, even though this is not specifically about eating, I know that the topic comes up a lot when parents are trying to figure out on-campus housing versus off-campus housing. Now, at one point in time, I thought that if you lived on campus, you were required to get a meal plan. And that meal plan can be the difference between you saying I'm staying on campus and me getting my own apartment, because an apartment, that rent monthly is cheaper than it is to have on-campus housing. So not that it necessarily covers the topic of healthy living, but when we're talking about the different options, well, not healthy living, I'm sorry, just the food options, those that's also a conversation that comes up when you're trying to figure out food, no food, on campus, not on campus. Like, what's the option here? And I know that you lived on campus all your 4 years.
I lived on campus my whole 4 years, which again, I mean, I was fortunate in a sense because I had the luxury of not having to worry about a household at all. Like, because a lot of people even think, oh, I'm just going to get an off-campus apartment. I'm an off-campus apartment. And in certain instances, there are on-campus apartments that will still afford you to the opportunity to have a meal plan. But I didn't have to worry about furnishing an apartment. I didn't have to worry about dishes. I didn't have to worry about cleaning up, like outside of that little small space, like the all of the responsibilities that come with maintaining a household plus rent or whatever, utilities and expenses. Like, it was just no worries. It was nothing for me to worry about. But again, I'm a senior, and my senior year, I hate to say it, I ended up getting a freshman as a roommate.
Wow.
And that was a little, Yes, I don't know if you remember Chelsea.
Chelsea, I remember Chelsea. I didn't realize Chelsea was a freshman.
She was a freshman, and again, by that time, I had friends that lived off campus and things like that. So literally, I was just there to wrap things up. But at the same time, I'll say this on the flip side: my friends that did live off campus knew that if they didn't want to go home for the rest of the part of the day, if they had a break in their schedule, they can come over to my room and go to sleep. They can use my, if I had some points on my meal plan, they can use my meal plan and go eat. Like, we looked out for one another in that way. But I just didn't have other responsibilities, and I did not have to worry about transportation back to campus. So when you're thinking about moving off campus just because the rent is cheaper, you have to factor in all of those things. You have to factor in food. You have to factor in transportation. You have to factor in, and the risk is your roommate situation. That means you are relying on someone else to really make sure that their financial situation is good, so that the whole responsibility of rent does not fall on you. Security deposits, quite honestly, especially around in college towns and around college campuses, these landlords know that there's a high risk of renting to college students. So like we talked about a couple episodes ago, when we went to a parties jumping, it's 90 people in a row house. Again, the damages. So they are going to require a security deposit. So that's more money you have to come up with up front. So really, like, do the math and weigh the cost.
And I think the last thing we wanted to make sure that we talked about, because this is something that we heard about it then, because back then when we were younger, it was like the Flintstone vitamins, but a lot more people are into vitamin usage and taking them. And I can say at my age now, it is part of my routine. Vitamins, whether I'm putting a hydration packet in my water, or if I'm taking my turmeric, my elderberry, all these things. I think people are way more aware of it post-COVID, to be honest with you, about vitamins and what vitamins can do for you, versus you hear more about it now. And so on a college campus, you are around a lot of germs. Your food has nutrients, it has vitamins. Do a little personality test for your vitamins. They have all types of apps where you can do it to find out the vitamins that you need to sustain your livelihood, whether you're an athlete, whether you have long hours, whether you suffer from fatigue all the time, you can't figure out why you're tired, you're probably deficient in something, you're not eating something that you need to have. Think about those vitamins and what they can do for you. I'm sure somebody's mom is like, baby, did you take your vitamins? I remember you giving Chaz his, right? Because Chaz has a multivitamin, right?
Multivitamin, omega-3 for him. But let me touch on I want to touch on a couple things that you said about vitamins. I'm going to touch on the omega-3, because again, when you are in an environment where your memory has to be on par because you're studying, you have to memorize a lot of things. That omega-3 can help with that. But on the flip side, what a lot of college campuses do, and it's happened a lot while I was there, you rely on coffee, but now they have 5-hour energy. They have Red Bull. All of that.
I was taking ginseng when I was in college. Ginseng.
All of that newfangled stuff is garbage, and it actually causes neurological damage. And then you got to watch what you mixing that stuff with. That red, everybody thinks it's a kiki Red Bull and some vodka and things like that. Like, you're writing out your whole insides, and you're setting yourself up to make some poor decisions. So again, those things that you take to help you get through the day or get through all night. I did an all-nighter one time and never did it again. But the energy that you need to function as a college student, staying up on whether or not you're working, if you're an athlete, staying up with your studies and your classes, all procrastinate and wait to the last minute, you might have to pull an all-nighter. But the benefit of vitamins is that natural energy that you need to kind of get through.
Right. Absolutely. So I think we touched on some really good, important things. The care packages, sweet talk your mama, sweet talk your daddy, work your meal plan, your freshman 15, your vitamins, understanding your dining options. I think it's really important. I'm sure these are things that, no one really thinks about in totality, but it has a lot to do with your functionality on campus when you're just trying to figure out how to maintain it, because food is expensive.
And let's touch on that, because I think we had mentioned that a couple episodes ago. a group of students at Morgan really realized that there were food insecurities, that there were students who were not getting proper nutrition because they could not afford it. So what they did was they created and they maintained a food bank on campus. So that, again, they're collecting donations of donated food, and they distribute that to the students who are in need. But if you're savvy, and again, you know, no one wants to admit that they're having these types of situations, but if you're in an urban area or if you're in certain areas, you can go to the local food bank.
Oh, and how did I even forget? But how did we forget to mention this? We know a lot of our schools are in the middle of nowhere. We talked about that before. So really understanding how to utilize the food options on campus, but also maintaining what your dietary needs are. I think as just people, even though Americans are very unhealthy, I think that a lot more of us are way more conscious about what we eat. We might not be the size we want, but we can feel our bodies when they're not nourished properly. I know a 20-year-old body or a 17, 18, 19-year-old body is a lot different than a 40-something-year-old body. But I'm here to tell you that as you get older, your body changes. Things that you didn't like when you were younger, you begin to like. Try some things that you didn't like when you were younger because they taste different now. Your taste buds change as you get older. These are all the things I'm saying that no one ever said to me, because all of a sudden now I love every kind of bean under the sun. I would not, could not, did not think about eating anybody's beans when I was younger. Both my parents is country folks. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
But again, my first experience with Brussels sprouts, I was like, oh no, never. And again, maybe a year ago. But also, you know, think about some of the programs that you have at your school. Some of them have culinary arts programs. Get in there and be a taster. Like these are little innovative ways. And you mentioned before that you worked for food service. I had a classmate who actually worked for the food service on campus. So he didn't buy a meal plan because he's in there working. So the food is there.
Right there. Whenever you need it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
But that was a strategic move on his part. Like if I am working in food service, this particular year, I do live off campus. I mean, he was maybe a few blocks from campus. But so since I'm off campus now, I don't worry about food options because I work in the food service department here. So I'm there and I'm around food.
So here we are, just being your HBCU aunties, bringing you some information about what you need to succeed, things your parents told you that you might not listen to. We're here to help you get through it. We are here, Mia and Tyon, signing out.